U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has wrapped up his latest diplomatic tour of the Middle East. He was in Turkey earlier this morning, holding talks with that country's foreign minister about the war in Gaza. Blinken spoke to reporters before boarding his plane and leaving for Tokyo and the G7 foreign ministers meeting. And he told reporters about his trip and the progress he feels he's made so far.
On the humanitarian piece, I think we've made some good progress in recent days in working to expand that. Ambassador Satterfield remains in the region working that every single day. We've also had very important conversations throughout this trip with countries in the region on the role that everyone can play in making sure that the conflict doesn't expand, doesn't spread to other countries. And of course, we remain very focused on the hostages held by Hamas, including Americans, in making sure we're doing everything possible to bring them home.
That is Antony Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State, again, just about to board his plane as he spoke to reporters there, heading for Japan and the G7 Foreign Ministers Conference. He will be dealing with Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister, Melanie Joly, and we'll have full coverage of that summit as well over the following days. Rebecca Collard is in Beirut, and she was listening along with me to Antony Blinken as he spoke live last hour. Thinking back on that, Rebecca, again, what stood out as far as what Blinken said about the war and the U.S. diplomatic effort to establish some form of a humanitarian pause?
You know, I think what really stood out to me, Heather, is the fact that he talked about all this progress that was made, but he actually, he's boarding a plane now. He's leaving after several days in the region, meeting with Israeli leaders, Palestinian leaders, Arab foreign ministers, Turkey, Iraq. And what we didn't hear was any substantial progress. We didn't hear anything substantial on the movement, on the file of the hostages, on the U.S.'s push for a humanitarian ceasefire, on the issue of aid. And so despite the fact that he said there was progress made, he didn't really make any announcements. And I think that's what a lot of people were looking for. But let's listen to what he said, how he summed up his trip, Heather.
One of the common denominators that I've heard throughout this trip is the imperative of American engagement, American leadership. Every country I talk to is looking for us to play a leading role with our diplomacy to try to make progress on all of these different aspects of the crisis.
And, Heather, I'm not sure that is true. Talking to people in this region, reading the local media here, watching local media here, I don't think that there is a feeling in this region right now that the U.S. is able to play the sort of role that it might have used to play. Because remember, of course, Heather, there was a time when the U.S. was a key mediator here. They, of course, were key in brokering the Oslo peace accords 30 years ago between Israelis and Palestinians. They were key in the peace agreements Israel made with Egypt and Israel made with Jordan. But I think that legitimacy or that role has really been eroded over many decades, in part because many people in this region really feel, Heather, that that the U.S. supports Israel no matter what, and it stands beside Israel no matter what. And I think they're feeling that even more now, as what we know that Blinken heard as he went across this region was, we want a ceasefire. That's what Arab foreign ministers told him. That's what the Palestinian president told him. That is what he heard. And all we've heard from Blinken is that they want a humanitarian pause. And I think even more crucially, when we talk about the U.S.'s role and the U.S.'s legitimacy here, despite the fact that they have, that the U.S. is, of course, a major military and political supporter of Israel, it doesn't seem that they have the leverage at the moment to push for these humanitarian pauses that Blinken has been saying the U.S. thinks are important to allow aid in, to allow Palestinians in Gaza to reach safety. So, I think because of that, despite the fact that he said, so much progress was made, that everybody in the region is looking to the U.S. to play this key role, I'm not sure that that's true at the moment, Heather.